hey, let's go to the Kundalini workshop where we can dance our Kundalini free. Yes, that's so awesome. I was in Bali for that. I feel enlightened. I could channel other beings. Something like that, maybe. It's really fancy in that times, right? We hear that often. See some commercials on the social medias promoting that workshop, that retreat for awakening Kundalini. But is this really good? Or maybe a demonic energy? Let's dive into Kundalini, light, shadow, and the awakening of the inner serpents. The sleeping power, origin and symbol of Kundalini. At the base of the spine, where according to Indian tradition the life energy has its origin, it rests, coiled like a sleeping snake, waiting for the call of awakening. Kundalini is what it is called in the ancient tantric scriptures, a power that, it is said, can be both divine and demonic destructive. In the Shat Chakra Nirupana, a classic tantric text from the 16th century, but at that point I have to say we have different tantric traditions. Only the white is really pure, the red and black is more what Hollywood does, sex and black stuff, yeah, so watch out. It is described as a 3.5-fold coiled snake that sleeps at the lower end of the spine in the Muladhara chakra, the root center. When awakened, it begins to rise, extending along the Sushumna. The Sushumna, you can see it as the spine. It's an energetic point nearly around the spine. The subtle energy channel that connects the 7 chakras, energy wheels or circles. Its path is not a physical one, but an energetical spiritual ascent. A journey from instinct to consciousness, from matter to spirit. But every ancient tradition knows that the path is really dangerous. It leads through the granthis, the 3 nodes of energetic blockades. We have Brahma Granthi, Vishnu Granthi, and Rudra Granthi, which act as tests. Only those who untie them can experience the energy in its pure white form. The ancient yogis and yoginis saw in her the divine principle of creation itself, Shakti. So please guys, don't tell me Shakti is always feminine and sexual. No, nature isn't that. Nature is pure, is raw. The primal force that resides in every human being, but in modern times, the image has split between those who recognize the Divine Mother in Kundalini and those who sense in her a strange, even demonic dangerous power. Between heaven and hell, the dual nature of the serpent. The coin has 2 sides, right? The serpent is an ancient symbol older than any religion. You even find it in modern medicine. Yeah, we all maybe need to go to the dog from day to day, from time to time, and you all know the symbol of the doctors. Not only in religion, so it's really old. In Mesopotamia, for example, it was a sign of renewal. In Egypt, it adorned the forehead of the pharaohs as the uraeus, symbol of divine power. In the Bible, on the other hand, it became the temper, the symbol of the fall, the demonic influence or devil influence. This ambivalence is reflected in Gnosticism and early Christianity. For some Gnostic schools, such as the Ear of Pitts, The serpent in paradise was not an enemy, but a liberator who brought knowledge to mankind. For others, it was a trickster of the demiurge, the lower power that bind man to matter, a demonic power. From this perspective, the Kundalini is the boundary line between the two, divine fire that can lead to enlightenment, or to the burning of the ego if it is unprepared. In Islamic mysticism, especially in the Sufi tradition, there's no direct counterpart, but there are similar warnings. The Naqshbandi Sufis speak of subtle energy centers, the lataif, which can be purified through spiritual practice. However, opening them too quickly, not prepared, can ignite the ego and lead to madness. The Prophet, it is said, warned, "Those who seek the light too soon will be blinded by its brilliance," and I think it's the most beautiful thing I heard. It's really like in yoga. If you practice yoga really from the tradition, from jnana yoga, from the knowledge what is really ancient old. So this is amazing. I really appreciate the sentence. In modern esotericism, on the other hand, the image of the Kundalini has been interpreted partly literally and partly technically as biochemical or electrical energy in the nervous system. In his book Kundalini, the Evolutionary Energy in Man from 1917, Indian mystic Gopi Krishna wrote about his own awakening, a state that left him, oscillating between ecstasy and torment for years. He warned, "It is not a force that we call upon, but one that calls upon us. So watch out who you listen to." And by the way, C.J. Young was not so pure like you think. He also had his inner demons and was experimenting with different stuff, even if it was natural. So why we believe these people? I can't believe. But let's go on. The three grantees, gates, doorsteps through consciousness and the Lululand delusion. To understand the symbolic of Kundalini, one must understand its notes. The grantees are like seals in the human system, areas where consciousness and identity become, entangled. For the first, we have Brahma Granthi, the knot of matter located at the root chakra. It keeps us bound to the physical, to fear, possessions, and survival. Its solution means trust, letting go of the primal instinct that the world is dangerous. The second knot is Vishnu Granthi, the knot of the heart, which people are really listening to the heart at the moment in this Kali Yuga times. But let's go on. Here lie attachment, love, but also pride and spiritual or material ego. Many seekers get caught here in the feeling of, I am the chosen one. I know how it works. I'm enlightened. We know that, right? We all hear that on social media. 3. Rudra Granthi, the knot of the mind between the eyebrows and the crown of the head. Here, the mind itself must be let go, the last veil between the self and the whole. Psychologically interpreted, they correspond to the great thresholds in human consciousness: security, relationship, identity, or to say it in Western language, survival, emotion, knowledge. So also the Swiss psychologist C.G. Young saw the Kundalini as a symbol of psychic transformation, but he was not really pure. He was not a genie, a master, stuff like that. He uses strange stuff to come into it, and he had his depressive Kundalini crisis, so he was not ready for it, guys. In his 1932 lectures on yoga, he spoke of the rising serpent as the energy of the unconscious, pushing into consciousness, dangerous if the ego cannot integrate it, and he can't. Imagine, he had relationships with his patients, with his clients, with the people he has to heal. And nowadays, this is really a critical view. It's same like you go to a guru and get fucked by him. Sorry for saying that, yeah? But he was not so pure or a perfect guru like some people think. Also Freud not. He took even weirder drugs and was really ill. So even if they were writing good, we have to question that. Why we are following always so blind instead of making our own research. Anyway, let's continue. When the serpent awakens too soon, the trauma of enlightenment. Many modern people report spontaneous Kundalini experiences, sudden tingling along the spine, hot flashes, visions of light, channelings of other beings, the feeling that one's consciousness is expanding boundlessly, followed by exhaustion, anxiety, insomnia, or even psychosis. Psychiatrists call it a spiritual crisis, not an illness. So, yeah, C.J. Young has this crisis. At that time, right now, they don't call it illness, but let's wait what they say in 50 years. But the symptoms can resemble classic images: bipolar episodes, dissociative states, sensory overload, extreme empathy. This is where psychology and mystics meets. People whose perception is already more intense, for example, due to, let's say, Asperger's spectrum or bipolarity or high sensitivity, open inner gates more easily, more quickly. The filters, if I can call it like that, between the conscious and the unconscious are really thinner. So please watch out if you have stuff like that. When a symbolic or real impulse, meditation, trauma, isolation, substances, raises their inner energy, the body-mind complex can hardly regulate it. Gopi Krishna wrote, "I was floated with a stream of light, but my brain was not prepared for it." Also really beautiful said, Gopi Krishna. Yeah. Also, C.J. Young was not ready for it. Nobody was ready for it. Maybe 1 to 5% are ready for that. In modern neurobiology, this is referred to as dysregulation of the autonomic nervous system, overactivation of the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or fly response. The ancient metaphor of the rising serpent could therefore be an archaic description of neuroenergetic processes. Interesting, right? Shadow knowledge, the warnings of the Gnostics, and maybe once modern researchers. So I found one who really put it well together, so I will quote him a bit too. In his lectures on consciousness, biochemistry, and so-called technologic forces, German researcher Harald Kaufler takes a critical view on Kundalini. His thesis: this energy is not originally human, but rather an implanted program, a wiring system that was installed in the last 5,000 to 7,000 years, so it's a Kali Yuga phase. Yeah, it must be, because we are in it also 5,000 to 7,000 years. If I hold it traditional, before we had Krishna and Arjuna was the end of the last Yuga, and it was the last phase where we were more spiritual connected, so it makes logical sense. The Kali Yuga phase is the dark age in Hinduism. So he said Kundalini is a tool of controlling from other beings. He refers to observations that some Kundalini experiences can lead to a kind of artificial intelligence in the body, a power of its own that separates itself from the sense of self. Yeah, I think Islamic says that too, and the old yoga scriptures too, so that is why I'm quoting. In this view, the serpent is not Shakti, but a form of energy that draws consciousness into matter. So we don't get enlightenment at all. You think you are, yeah, like the devil think he's better than God, or like demons want to blind you. It's all the same. You only put it in other words. This interpretation is similar to Gnostic concepts. The material world as the creation of the demuric and imperfect God who holds the divine spark of humanity captive. The serpent would be the tool that maintains this bond. However, this view is symbolic, not empirical. So at the moment we don't have some stuff to prove, but who knows. After a while, everything gets proves what Hinduism and the old scripture said and wrote, so let's wait and see. And even in Gnosticism, there are two interpretations. I have to name them to be really clear. One condemns the serpent, the other reveres it as a transmitter of knowledge. Valentinus, one of the great Gnostics, said, the serpent gave humans the consciousness that the God of the Old Testament wanted to deny them. Modern man also faces this dilemma. In the Kundalini, the Divine Mother, or a deception of the system, choose it by your own. The fire of opposites, bipolarity and the stream of consciousness. For people with bipolar tendencies or autistic form of perception, for example, the Kundalini experience can be particularly intense. This is because both the ups and downs of energy and the increased sensitivity resemble the course of a spiritual opening. Phases of euphoria, inspiration, supernatural clarity, followed by crashes into emptiness and depression. So, if you really read the old scripture, only a pure soul experience really the pure happiness. Every influencer said, yeah, that's neutral. If you're Kundalini, no, it's not neutral. It's not natural, not at all. You are not pure enough, bro. You just awaken it too fast. Face the truth. Neurophysiologically explained, the limbic system emotion, the prefrontal cortex control, and the dopaminergic reward system resonate like a flame that burns too strongly. In mysticism, this is called the fire of purification. But those who enter this fire without guidance can get burned. And this is why also Islamic says it's demonic, because you burn your own spirit, you open other stuff, you face your own demons, like Faust from Goethe was facing Mephisto, and it doesn't went well for Faust at the end, if you remember. So that is why ancient yoga traditions always emphasized Guru Parampara, the living lineage of teachers who prepare, stabilize, and protect students. And they have long-term experience, not only in fitness asana. They're studying all of that. They were in hell and came back, not hold in hell and try to put you in like influencers are doing it. In the West, this structure was often overlooked because the symbol of Kundalini was understood as a technique rather than an initiation. So for that, I want to quote C. Jiang, because he wrote, "The West want the experience without making the sacrifice." And he is right, because he was stuck in it. The synthesis. Kundalini as a mirror of evolution. Perhaps the truth is less dualistic than many traditions believe, neither entirely divine nor demonic, but rather an evolutionary function of consciousness, a biological and spiritual force that grows within human beings themselves. The historian of religion, Mikreya Eliade, saw Kundalini as the myth of accession in human form. For him, it was an archetype that appears in many cultures, from the ancient Egypt, Ka, to the Chinese Qi teachings, to the Christian tongues of fire of the Holy Spirit. And indeed, all cultures speak of an inner fire, a force that purifies, renews, and transforms. But it's depending on your spirit. How pure and good are you? What makes it dangerous is not its nature, but our relationship to it and our fucking ego mind. The heart of the snake. Kundalini is not a power that can be possessed. It is a mirror of yourself. It shows what is unbelongs within. It amplifies what is hidden. So please, practice many years before you do that fucking shit. Those who seek it out of curiosity or greed for power encounter their shadows and get stuck in it. Remember, C.J. Young also has relationship to his client. This is not really ethical, moralic. No, not at all. Those who receive it out of love, pure love, unconditional love, and devotion encounter themselves. But which people are like that? Nowadays? In Kali Yuga times? But let's go ahead. Whether you see it as a divine mother, a neutral fire, or archaic program, controlling program, call it how you want. It is part of our human history. Its awakening does not mark the victory over the ego, but rather the reminder that consciousness does not want to be possessed, but lived. At the mystique, Ramakrishna said, "When the snake sleeps, you are safe. When it moves, your life will burn down. When it dances, you are free." That is why almost all classical yoga scriptures, like Hatha Yoga Pratipika, Shiva Samhita, only to name two, explicitly state only under the guidance of an experienced long-time guru and only after moral, ethical, emotional, and physical purification. And this is not something that goes fast. Once again, in conclusion, medical, psychological perspective. When and why is it not recommended? It is not recommended in cases of psychotic disorders or schizophrenia. Reason: Kundalini practices can dissolve perceptual boundaries and the connection to reality. Symptoms such as energy flow, voices, channelings, other beings, visions, or light, or feelings of divine calling can be confusing or triggering for psychotic individuals. In psychiatry, this is referred to as Kundalini included psychosis or spiritual crisis, such as C.J. Young had. So you don't want to step into that field. If you don't believe me, check the source. Psychiatrist Sannella wrote The Kundalini Experience, Psychosis or Transcendence in 1976. Also, don't do it if you have epilepsy. Breathing and energy exercises, especially Bhastrika, Kapalabhati, or Kumbhaka, can trigger epileptic seizures. Strong internal energy movements or rhythmic hyperventilation destabilize the neuronal excitation threshold. Also, don't do it when you have dissociative disorders, so post-traumatic stress disorders, or make it more easy, PTSD. Physical sensations, tremors, flashbacks, energy surges. All of these can reactivate traumatic memories. Many trauma therapists advise against Kundalini yoga or trance work until sufficient grounding that's been established. You don't believe me? Check the source. Van de Kolk. The body keeps the score from 2014. Anxiety and obsessive compulsive disorders. Energy work can cause intense palpitation, shortness of breath, and loss of control, which can be misinterpreted as panic. People with obsessive thought about purity, guilt, or spirituality can easily fall into spirals of religious anxiety, fear, let's say simple, or personality disorder, especially borderline and narcissistic. Strong fluctuations between ego dissolution and ego reinforcement can increase inner instability. Spiritual practices are sometimes used compensatorily or escapistly, or cardiovascular diseases. Intense breathing techniques, pranayama, and energy experiences can dangerously affect heart rhythm and blood pressure. Who advises against it and why? Clinical psychiatry, transpersonal psychology. Researchers such as Stanislav, Grof, and Sannella have documented that Kundalini awakenings release spiritual potential, but can also lead to the disintegration of the ego. Therefore, only under supervision, ideally after psychological stabilization, you have really to be grounded, guys, to be pure in your heart, in your mind, in your words, in what you eat and do. This is not done tomorrow. So Sannella's quote, "The rise of energy can expand consciousness or fragment it. Both are possible depending on the vessel, and you are the vessel." Traditional yoga masters, Swami, Sivananda, Satyananda, Saraswati, Gopi Krishna, Yogananda, all emphasize Immature practitioners should not awaken Kundalini. First, purify moral, ethic, body, food, and mind. Gopi Krishna himself suffered years of neurological torment after an uncontrolled awakening. See for the source Kundalini, the evolutionary energy in man, from 1970 to name the source. Also, Buddhist and Tantric schools they are warning. Tibetan Tantra warns against tumo, the inner fire, if the mind is not clear and calm. Disguided practice, wind disorders, rung, symptoms similar to psychosis. You don't believe me? No problem. Check the source. Yeshe Tsogyal, The Lotus-Born Life of Padmasambhava. Gnostic or esoteric schools. If you're from that field, some modern Gnostics and esoterics, like I named them Harikot-Feller or some other mystic Gnostics, mentored it, see Kundalini as a foreign or manipulated energy, alertly introduced by non-human force in the last Yuga, so 5,000 to 7,000 years ago maybe. These are non-epicural mythological interpretations, but they reveal and concern about uncontrollable power in humans, and they are, in my point of view, right. Conservative religious movements, also they are warning. Everybody is warning, no matter from which field you are. In Christianity, especially evangelical, Kundalini yoga is something described as demonic or occult because it can open false spirits. If your spirit is not pure, not cleaned up the shit, you get some demons like Faust, his Mephisto. In Islamic, Kundalini is discussed less directly, but the principle of Ru, divine spirit, is considered something that must not be awakened deliberately. Self-proclaimed mystic who manipulate energies are considered dangerous. Vidya, innovation in religion. Please listen to that, guys. Don't do simple shit only because it's fancy, only because you saw a commercial. Possible symptoms of a Kundalini crisis. In medical and psychological terms, this is also known as a spiritual crisis or Kundalini syndrome. Intense heat, twitching, feeling of electricity in the body, or insomnia, sensitivity to light, or intense crying or laughing, or visions, callings, channelings, voices, mystical images, or loss of sense of self, or anxiety, confused, loss of reality, or feeling of being flooded with energy. It's a lot, man. See, for that, big reason from 1993, the Physio Kundalini Syndrome, Interpretation of the Experience, Journal of Transcendent Psychology. But when could it be beneficial? So this is maybe 1 to 5%. You have really to clean up your shit at first. After stable psychological integration in a safe environment, under the guidance of a long-term experienced teachers, not reading only fancy AI scriptures, not YouTube teacher, no social media teachers, okay? So teachers who know what is the bad experience and are healed. Don't take a teacher who is not healed, please. Ill people don't heal. No. They hold you in the trap. With a down-to-earth lifestyle, social integration, grounding, nature, nutrients, everyday life, 24/7, with respect for the limits of the body, and when the goal is awareness and compassion, not power, ecstasy, or making money out of it. No. So, if you want to know the terms and sources, I repeat it, but I put all the sources in my description for you down below. Gopi Krishna Kundalini, the evolutionary energy in man, experience report by a Western educated mystic, also who had bad experience with that and didn't came out and fucked his students. C.J. Young, the psychology of Kundalini yoga, psychologically interpretation of the chakras and level of consciousness, or Mircea Eliade, yoga, immortality and freedom, religious historical consideration of tantric symbolism, or even Rudolf Steiner and Theosophist said that, or even Harry Feller, or Ian McGilchrist, or Anthony Damasio. I put all the sources in there, many, yeah. So please watch out for that. Between breath and eternity. Perhaps the Kundalini is not what it seems to be. Perhaps it is not a cosmic being, not an alien program, not a danger, but a language. A language with which life itself speaks to us. Everything is life. We are. The whole universe is life. Sometimes it is whispering to you, sometimes it hisses, and sometimes it screams when we have been deafed for too long. In the awakening of the serpent lies neither heaven nor hell, but it shows your mirror, the eternal dance between the two, the spiral of life that rises with us. Kundalini is like a mirror of your own structure. It shows you everything beautiful and painful with exaggerated clarity. If you see it as darkness, it is because it drags your consciousness into the light. Perhaps it is neither divine nor demonic, perhaps it is simply what life really is, pure consciousness, recognizing itself, sometimes in agony, sometimes in ecstasy, but don't do it. Stay with the base. in these nowadays in the Western, nobody is really clean. Nobody is really the chosen one, and all of that is a spiritual bubble. Yeah, so don't believe things too fast. Don't believe the psychologists too fast. Don't believe some yoga gurus too fast. Make always your own researches. But enough for today. I hope it was interesting for you. Stay healthy and consciousness, guys. Thanks for listening. Of course, if you like this information, feel free to give a thumbs up. Write me your feedback down below. I would really like to know if you have your own experience with that. See you around. Shanti Om.